Hello and welcome to TVC News at 7, and we begin in the nation's capital, where the National Assembly has approved the sum of 28.7 trillion naira as the 2024 Appropriation Bill. The proposed budget was increased by 1.2 trillion from 27.5 billion sent to the National Assembly. The National Assembly passed the bill at a special plenary on Saturday. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, had assured that the bill will be transmitted to the President for quick passage into law. And earlier, the Senate approved President Tinubu's request for the scrutinization of the outstanding debt debit balance of 7.3 trillion naira in the Consolidated Revenue Fund to the Federal Government of Nigeria.
The Senate confirmed the approval 7 trillion 388 billion 696 million 34,520 naira 87 kobo as securitization as requested by Mr. President and approved in the Committee of the Whole. Will the Senate confirm this? Those who are in support of the confirmation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
And for more on this story, I'm being joined by our correspondent, Joke Adisa, and she's joining me from Abuja. So, Joke, let's get a more understanding on the reason behind the increase on the budget by 1.2 trillion. Give us more insights on this. Yet to be online. Let's quickly bring in our guests. Senator Osita Isunazo, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Capital Market. Good to have you on the news at this time. So first off, let's begin with the key considerations now that influenced the decisions to increase the budget by 1.2 trillion from the proposed budget of 27.5 trillion naira to 28.7 trillion naira. Give us more insights on this.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Today, we've successfully passed the 2024 budget, which wasn't a very easy task. You know, the budget came very late, came around November 29th, and we have to work beyond routine requirements to cross all the I's and dot all the T's before we get to where we are today. But the most important phenomenon here is that the budget has been increased from 27.5 trillion to 28.7 trillion, which means that you have an increment of about 1.3 trillion. And the reason for this increment is not necessarily from National Assembly. It is from the executive, who also felt that there are some sectorial allocations that need to be increased upon, like works, transport, water resources, etc., etc. And we looked at it. But the most important thing is, even if you're increasing the budget, what about the revenue projection? What about, are you going to get the revenue to back it up? So that is the reason the 750 per dollar projection has to change to 800 per dollar projection in the 2024 budget. So we have to increase it to 800 instead of the 750 that were proposed by the executive. And we also have to look at additional revenue from government agencies that generating revenue. By the time we got up to 1.3 trillion that they requested for, then we were able to adjust, and the budget is now 28.7 trillion. But most importantly, all the increments are in the capital. That is why the capital that was initially proposed at 8.7 is now 9.9 trillion, almost 10 trillion. And if for a balanced budget, it is usually advisable that the capital should be higher than the recurrent. Because a situation where the recurrent is higher than the capital, it means that your overhead cost is higher than what you are using to develop the country. If you minus the debt revenue, debt profile, minus the capital, the recurrent, the budget will just be about 8.7 trillion before now. But now that we have increased it to 9.9 trillion, you can see that it's going to be a fair and a very balanced budget. So these are the reasons why the increment has become a reality.
Adjustments in the budgets, there are concerns that perhaps, or there are questions rather, if this would definitely meet the expectations of Nigerians in terms of developmental areas, in terms of the key sectors like infrastructure, healthcare, education. What is the guarantee now that this increase will make any impact in the lives of ordinary Nigerians?
Well, the guarantee is that when the budget was initially presented to us, the same executive that proposed the budget felt that certain critical infrastructural agencies, MDAs, need to get additional funding. That was why, if you look at the 1.3 trillion, you see that places, works have about 200 billion. There's money for health, there's additional funding for education, there's additional funding for school feeding, and all the rest of them. So I believe that it is right and proper that additional funding be given to those agencies that are critical in terms of infrastructural development. But having said that, the most important thing about budget is not even passing the budget, but it is budget implementation. So now that we're working side by side with the executive to match the revenue with the expenditure, I believe that Mr. President, when he has sent this bill into law, because it's a bill, when I send it into law, it becomes an act of parliament, that the executive themselves should also implement the budget. Because if you don't implement the budget, it means that the essence of the entire budget exercise will be an exercise in futility. And this is what I think should not happen at this point in time. Considering the fact that we have all left our families and our holidays to be here. Today is 30th of December, and we're all here working. We are still sitting, because having passed the budget, if we don't pass the vote and proceeding, it cannot be transmitted to the executive for assent. So we are waiting right now to pass the vote and proceedings. And I believe that before 8:39 p.m. tonight, we would have finished.
Right now, with the changes already, we understand, in the exchange rate, how can the government mitigate now the potential adverse effects in businesses, particularly those who are dependent on foreign exchange for transactions?
Well, but you know that right now, the exchange rate is very volatile. It is not something that you can predict right now. But now that the budget is saying we want the exchange rate to be at 800 per dollar, that means that even those who are going to hot dollar will begin to have a rethink that this is what the exchange rate is going to be as from January the 1st. And there are a lot of other things that the executive have put in place to ensure that this will happen. But let us just work and see to what extent we can achieve that. But that is where we are at the moment.
So what other long-term measures now do you think the government can do, or to take rather, to sustain measures towards ensuring inclusive growth across all sectors of the economy?
Well, I believe so, because if you look at the sectorial allocation of this budget, you can see that it has dealt with virtually all the sectors of the economy. And don't forget that when the president was making the budget speech, he also said that the government will partner with private sector in developing some critical infrastructure. So which means that government alone knows that they can't do everything. He said that this budget will deal with public-private partnership in some of the areas where government will not be able to provide the funding. So we believe that this budget is a real budget of hope, renewed hope, if I may say, and it's a budget that we need to kickstart it immediately, because this government is a transition government. It came in after 2023 budget was passed by a different government. So that was why the reason this budget came late to National Assembly, because it was a transition budget. And because it's a transition budget, the National Assembly had to extend the lifespan of 2023 to March 31st, 2024. We also extended the lifespan of the supplementary budget to March 31st, 2024. But we are saying that this particular 2024 budget should begin January 1 to address some of these issues that you have raised. So I believe that with the 2023 supplementary, 2023 main budget, and 2024 working pari passu, I believe that we'll be able to achieve a lot by the time we come to the middle of the year.
That's a fine place to leave it. Senator Osita Isunazo, Chairman, Senate Committee on Capital Market, we appreciate your insights on the news at 7 this evening.
Thank you.